Welcome to our deep dive today. We're going to be talking about something pretty interesting, maybe even a little bit unsettling, AI and how much energy it uses. We're looking at a BBC AI decoded thing they did, and the big question they ask is, can AI really help us with this whole climate crisis thing if it's using up a ton of energy itself?
Yeah.
So, you probably know, data centers use a lot of power. But the crazy thing is, experts are saying that, electricity demand could go up by 40% over the next 10 years. And AI is a big reason for that. We're talking about data centers using as much power as whole countries,
No.
The Netherlands or Sweden. Yeah, it's wild. It really makes you think, how are we going to keep up with this whole AI thing, and do it in a way that doesn't wreck the planet?
Right.
And one thing that's been kind of surprising is that big tech companies, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, they're putting a lot of money into nuclear power.
Right.
Which seems kind of weird, right? Especially for Amazon. They've been all about renewable energy.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's they're investing in solar and wind too. But those sources can be kind of finicky,
Yeah.
They can't always provide the consistent, always on energy that these huge AI systems need. Think of AI as this super powerful engine.
Okay.
It needs a constant flow of fuel to keep running. Solar and wind, they're great, don't get me wrong. But the sun goes down, the wind stops blowing, and that could be a real problem when you need to power something as energy hungry as AI.
So that kind of explains why they're looking at nuclear, but is it really sustainable? I mean, haven't we been trying to get away from nuclear for years because of, safety and all that waste?
Oh, absolutely. Those are real concerns, and they're definitely part of the whole conversation around nuclear. But, technology's come a long way. There are new reactor designs that are much safer, and they produce less waste. The truth is we need a ton of clean energy to power this AI revolution, and we need it fast. Renewable energy is key, yeah. But it might not be enough right now. So some experts think nuclear could be like a bridge, a way to get reliable, low-carbon energy while we build up enough renewable infrastructure to meet the demand.
So it's not really picking one over the other, right? It's more about finding the right mix of energy sources for what we need now and in the future.
Exactly.
But one thing that's kind of interesting is that these nuclear investments are mostly coming from American tech companies. So I wonder, what does that mean for the rest of the world? Could we see countries that were moving away from nuclear, like Germany, start going back to it?
It's definitely possible. The global picture for nuclear power is super complicated. Every country has different rules, different ways of owning and running these plants. And people think about nuclear energy differently all over the world. Here in the U.S., there's a lot of interest in this next generation nuclear tech. But in Germany, they've been phasing it out, really moving away from it. But this need for clean energy to power AI could change things up. If these American tech companies are buying up all the nuclear resources, it could pressure other countries to rethink their position on nuclear.
That makes sense. We've seen how competition can drive new ideas, but it can also cause tension and inequality. If we don't do this carefully, this whole rush to power AI could just make the existing power imbalances in the world even worse. So let's switch gears a bit. The BBC report talked about this thing called digital sobriety. What is that exactly? And how does it fit into this whole energy demand thing with AI?
Yeah. So digital sobriety is basically just being more aware of how much we're using digital stuff.
Okay.
And realizing that every email we send, every video we stream, it all uses energy. And, asking ourselves, is there a way I could do this using less energy?
I see.
So instead of using a chatbot to book a flight, maybe you could just use a search engine or even call the airline. Yeah, it seems like a small thing, but when you think about how many billions of digital interactions happen every day, it really adds up.
So it's we as consumers actually have a role to play in how AI impacts our energy use. We can ask tech companies to be more upfront about how much energy their products use, and we can make smarter choices about how and when we use AI.
Exactly.
So that brings up another question. What can tech companies do to make AI solutions that use less energy?
Well, there's a lot of cool stuff happening in that area.
Okay.
Researchers are working on new algorithms, like the math behind AI, and new hardware, the physical parts, that are just naturally more energy efficient. There's this thing called neuromorphic computing, which is basically trying to copy how the human brain works.
Interesting.
Yeah, they've been crazy efficient. So imagine if AI could do all these complex things, but only using a tiny fraction of the energy it uses now.
That would be amazing.
Right. And then there's federated learning. which is a pretty neat idea.
Yeah.
Right now, AI models need tons of data to be sent to these big centralized data centers for processing,
Yeah.
which, you guessed it, uses tons of energy.
Uh-huh.
But with federated learning, you actually send the AI algorithms out to where the data is, like to your smartphone, and it's trained right there.
Oh, wow.
So it uses less energy, and as a bonus, it's better for privacy too.
So it sounds like the answer to AI's energy problem might actually come from changing how we design and train AI itself, not just trying to use less of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, getting back to that BBC report, they showed off this new ChatGPT feature called Advanced Voice. And they
Yeah.
used it to make a spooky Halloween story, which I thought was pretty cool.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. It was fun.
Right.
Hearing a chatbot tell stories about, witches and werewolves,
Yeah.
it definitely showed how fast AI is getting better at sounding and even feeling like a real person.
It's kind of funny, right? We're talking about this technology that could use a ton of energy, and they're using it for a lighthearted Halloween story. But it shows you just how much potential AI has for creativity and entertainment, too.
Yeah, for sure. And that's important to keep in mind. While we need to be aware of how much energy AI uses, we also need to remember all the good it can do. Like the BBC report talked about how AI could be used for things like companionship, education, even therapy.
Right, so it's a tool. And like any tool, it can be used for good or bad. It all depends on how we develop it and use it.
Absolutely.
Speaking of choices, one of the experts in the BBC report, Sasha Lucioni, brought up a really interesting point about transparency. She said if consumers, knew how much energy AI products used, we could make better choices about using them.
Yeah, that's a powerful idea. Like, imagine if every time you used AI, you knew how much energy it cost. It might make you think twice about, I don't know, asking ChatGPT to write you a poem or using a voice assistant for something you could easily do yourself.
Like nutrition labels on food, right?
Exactly.
We need that same kind of transparency for our digital lives.
Exactly. That kind of transparency could really help people make better choices. And it could drive demand for AI solutions that are more energy efficient.
But even if we all got, like, super careful about our digital habits, wouldn't the fact that so many people around the world are using AIs still be a huge problem for energy?
That's a really good point.
Mm.
Yeah, even if we embrace this digital sobriety, the demand for AI is only going to grow. That's why it's so important that we work on solutions, both as individuals and as a society. We need to be mindful of how much we use digital technologies. But we also need to push for cleaner energy sources and AI technologies that are more efficient.
So it's a complex issue that needs a multifaceted approach. We need to address the demand side by changing our digital habits, and the supply side by investing in cleaner energy and more efficient technology. In the next part of our deep dive, we're going to explore some of the solutions being developed and talk about how you, the listener, can be a part of creating a more sustainable future for AI.
Well, it's not about being stuck, really. It's more like recognizing that there's no magic bullet. Nuclear can provide steady energy, sure, but it's not perfect like we talked about. The good news is there's a ton of research going on to find new ways to solve this whole energy thing.
That's good to hear. The BBC report actually mentioned that too. Like, researchers are looking into ways to make AI itself use less energy.
Exactly. And one really promising area is what they call neuromorphic computing. It's basically taking inspiration from the human brain.
Okay.
The brain is super complex, right?
Right.
But it's incredibly energy efficient. So imagine AI that can do these really complicated tasks, but only using a fraction of the energy it needs now.
So we're not just trying to throw more energy at the problem. We're trying to make AI itself smarter and more efficient, I guess.
Exactly. And then there's this other cool approach called federated learning. See, with how AI works now, you often need to send massive amounts of data to these huge data centers to be processed. And that takes a lot of energy. But with federated learning, they flip that whole model around. Instead of sending the data to the AI, they send the AI algorithms to where the data is.
Huh.
Yeah, like to your smartphone. And it's trained right there.
Oh, wow.
So it uses way less energy, and it's better for privacy, too.
It seems like the solutions to AI's energy problem might actually come from completely rethinking how we design and train these systems, not just trying to limit how much we use them.
Yeah, I think that's a key part of it.
And going back to the BBC report for a sec, they actually showed off this new ChatGPT feature, Advanced Voice, they call it, and they used it to, like, generate a spooky Halloween story, which I thought was pretty funny.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. It was kind of cool hearing a chatbot tell all those stories about witches and werewolves and stuff.
Yeah.
It really shows how fast AI is getting better at sounding like a real person.
It's kind of ironic, right? We're talking about this technology that could use so much energy. And they're using it for a silly Halloween story, but it does show you the potential AI has for being creative and entertaining.
Yeah, for sure. And it's important to remember that we need to be aware of the energy AI uses, but we also need to remember all the good things it can do.
Yeah.
Like they talked about how it could be used for companionship, education, even therapy.
It's like it's a tool,
Yeah,
right? And any tool can be used for good or for bad.
absolutely.
It depends on us how we develop it and how we use it. And speaking of choices, one of the experts in the report, Sasha Lucioni, she made a really good point about transparency. She said if people knew how much energy AI products actually used, they could make more informed choices about using them.
Yeah, that's a really interesting idea. Like, imagine if every time you interacted with some AI, you knew exactly how much energy it cost.
Mm.
You might think twice about, I don't know, asking ChatGPT to write a poem for you,
Mm-hmm.
or using a voice assistant to do something you could easily do yourself.
It's kind of like nutrition labels on food, right?
Exactly.
We need that same kind of transparency for our digital lives.
Totally. Having that information could really empower people to make better choices. And it could drive the market towards AI solutions that are more energy efficient.
But even if everyone started being super careful about how much they use AI, wouldn't the sheer number of people using AI around the world still create a massive energy problem?
That's a good point, yeah. Even if everyone jumped on this digital sobriety bandwagon, the demand for AI is still going to go up. That's why we need to be working on solutions at every level, both individually and as a society. We need to think about our own digital habits, but we also need to push for cleaner energy and AI technologies that are more efficient.
So it's a really complex issue that needs a multi-pronged approach. We need to tackle the demand side, by changing how we use digital tech, and the supply side by investing in cleaner energy and more efficient tech. In the last part of our deep dive, we're going to dig into some of the specific solutions that are being developed, and we'll talk about how you, as a listener, can be a part of building a more sustainable future for AI. So we've talked about the problem, right? AI using all this energy. And we've touched on some things we could do about it, like cleaner energy and designing AI differently. But what's next, really? Like, is there hope for AI, or are we kind of doomed to this energy crisis?
I think it's less about hope or doom and more about what we do. The future of AI isn't set, right? It's something we're all creating every time we make a choice about it. And that's pretty powerful when you think about it.
Yeah, that is a good way to think about it. But it can feel kind of overwhelming,
Yeah.
Like, what can I, as one person, really do to change something this big?
Yeah, I get that. It's a global thing, for sure. But even small changes, little things we do, they can add up and make a difference. Remember, digital sobriety.
Hmm.
Like putting that into practice is a good place to start. Next time you're about to use some AI tool, just stop for a second and think, do I really need this? Is there a way I could do this that doesn't use as much energy?
Hmm. So it's about being mindful of our choices online, just like we might choose to walk instead of drive or buy local food. We can choose to use AI in a way that's better for the planet.
Exactly. And it's not just about using less ourselves. It's about speaking up as consumers and telling tech companies what we want. We can ask questions, do some research, and choose to buy from companies that care about their impact and are trying to make AI more efficient.
It's like voting with our dollars, right? Supporting the
Nice.
businesses that are doing things the right way.
That's a good way to put it.
Hmm.
And if enough people start doing that, companies will have to listen.
Yeah, that pressure from people, plus all the cool research happening, it makes me feel a bit more optimistic about the future of AI.
There's definitely reason to be optimistic. We're seeing some amazing breakthroughs in AI efficiency, like that neuromorphic computing and federated learning we talked about. Those could really change how much energy AI uses.
So it's not just about using less AI, it's about making the AI we do use way more efficient, like working smarter, not harder.
Exactly. It has to be both. People taking responsibility for their own choices and big changes in the system. We
Right.
need to change our habits, and we need to push for cleaner energy and more efficient AI tech.
And if we all work together, we can make sure that AI becomes a force for good, not just for technology, but for the whole planet. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with this. The future of AI isn't decided yet. We're deciding it right now, together, with every choice we make. Are we going to let AI become this energy-guzzling monster, or will we help it evolve in a way that's better for the environment? The answer is up to us. Thanks for joining us today as we explored this complex topic. We hope this has given you some new things to think about and maybe even inspired you to play a part in creating a more sustainable future for AI. Until next time, stay curious.